Hey gang, what's going on? Welcome back to another edition of Intuitive Angling. I really appreciate you guys making some time out of your day to watch the video. I know you could be doing a lot of other stuff, so I just definitely thankful you guys taking a little time to watch this. So much appreciated. Today I want to give you guys sort of a foundation to go by on how to choose the correct pound test line for a variety of fishing applications, because I don't think a lot of people realize how many things that you have to take in consideration when you're picking pound test line. It's not just as simple as what it sounds. There's a lot of different things that the line size does that will affect the number of bites you get, the number of fish you land, how your baits perform. So I sort of want to give you guys sort of an overview. It's going to help you guys, I think, catch a lot more fish at the end of the video here. But real quick, before we get started here, just wanted to give you guys the weekly reminder on our Fish the Moment lake map breakdowns. You guys know that myself, Matt Steffen, Johnny Schultz, we've got lake map breakdowns for all the lakes across the country. We all been working hard on putting these summer map breakdowns out. We do personal breakdowns. If you're looking to know more about, your favorite lake, or you got a lake you don't know much about, it's the greatest resource you can get to get 40 good GPS waypoints and advice on how to fish those places. Check them out at fishinamoment.com. I'll include the link in the description, and I think you guys will really like that. Okay guys, let's talk about line test here. First of all, when you're considering the type of line test, a lot of it has to do with the lure category that you're fishing, because certain lures, let's talk a little bit about action, for example. Certain lures work better with different pound test lines as far as getting the maximum actual performance. Then we'll go into the bites and the efficiency of landing. But first of all, let's talk about just the action that your lures get off of the pound test that you're using. One of the things you have to remember as far as when you're fishing a slow bait and choosing the line test on a slow bait is, if you're fishing like a jig or a Texas rig, creature bait, or a Texas rig worm, finesse jig, drop shot, anything like that, the pound test line that you're using, or more specifically the diameter of that line, it has a big impact on the rate of fall of that particular bait, as far as how fast the bait falls and the angle of which it falls. In general, the larger test line, the larger diameter line that you're using, the more that it's going to slow the rate of fall, and it's also going to allow that bait to come at a more of a horizontal presentation than a vertical presentation if you go heavier. Now, sometimes that can be an advantage, because, for example, say if you're fishing shallow water with heavy cover, a lot of times going to a heavier pound test line, slowing that particular bait down, getting that bait to fall at a different angle will generate more strikes. And then sometimes going with a lighter pound test line, for like if you're fishing a drop shot or shaky head or something like that, it allows that bait to get down to the bottom a little bit quicker, and you're not really as concerned about the rate of fall. You just want to get that bait to the bottom as quick as possible. So the pound test line has a lot to do with the action on a slow bait. Now on a moving bait, sometimes it even has more of an impact. If you're fishing any type of a moving bait, like a crankbait or a jerk bait or something like that, the heavier line, what it does a lot of times, it first of all will make the bait run shallower. So if you're using 20 pound test line on a crankbait, obviously it's not going to run as deep as if you're using 8 or 10 pound test. So when you're factoring in your crankbait or your moving bait lures, realize that the pound test difference is going to make a lot difference in how deep the bait gets. I'll take example for a jerk bait, guys. If I'm fishing a jerk bait on 6 pound tests like Seaguar and Vizex fluorocarbon, my bait will run like a Megabass Vision 110 on a long cast with 6 pound test line. I can get that bait down 8 to 10 feet on a long cast with it. Now if I put the same bait on like 12 pound test Seaguar fluorocarbon line, that bait may only run like 6 feet. So there's a tremendous amount of depth attainment that you can have simply by going to heavier or lighter line. Now sometimes you don't want that. For example, if you're fishing a square bill crankbait in the summer on shallow laydowns, you want that heavier line. You don't want that bait to get down very deep. You want it to stay in the zone where you need to fish your cover at. So sometimes you you want to choose the heavier line, like 20-25 pound test line, simply to keep that bait up and that bait higher. That's going to have a big impact on that. So realize that the line size has a lot to do with the depth of the lure that you're fishing, and also on action too, a little bit. If you're using heavier line, again, on any type of a moving bait, it's going to take away a little bit of the action on the bait. It's different than on the slow bait, but if you're using, for example, 20 pound test line on a crankbait versus 10 pound test line, you're going to lose just a little bit of action on it, simply because the heavier line is going to be stiffer. It's going to reduce that side to side motion a little bit, not a lot, but it's going to definitely have some impact on it. The next thing you want to consider on your line size is getting bit, as far as how many bites you're going to get. Most of the time, guys, you're always going to get more bites on lighter line. It's just a fact of fishing. Lighter line is less obtrusive in the water. It gives the baits a little bit more lifelike action. Fish can't see it quite as much, so you're naturally going to get more bites on lighter line. Say for example, let's just take a drop shot. If you fish a drop shot vertical for suspended fish with 6 pound test line, you're going to get a lot more bites on that than if you tried to fish a drop shot on 15 pound test line. Try it if you don't believe me, but there's definitely an impact that goes with that. And so, a lot of that has to do with how deep you're fishing. It has to do with the water clarity too. Obviously, the clearer the water, the more you want to go with the lighter pound test, simply because of the visibility factor. But if you're in dirty water, like water visibility of less than a 1.5 feet or something like that, the diameter of the line in terms of getting strikes goes way down. And if you're in dirty water, like 6 to 8 inches of visibility, the line diameter doesn't have much to do as far as with the number of bites you get from the visibility aspect of it. Unless you get into braided line, for example. Braided line's a different category too. So always remember that. And the last thing we'll talk about is the efficiency of landing the bass. There's a balancing act here, what you have, because obviously light line is going to give you more bites, but heavier line is going to allow you to get more fish in the boat, simply because if you have heavier line on there, it'll stand it'll withstand the impact of, like, if you have an abrasion on a sharp object or a rock, or if you get it in the fish's mouth, or if the fish gets caught up around a piece of cover. Your odds are always greater by going with heavier line, just simply to land the fish. But what you have to do is you've got to have this balancing act between the lightest line that you can use and still efficiently fish the cover that you're fishing. So that's something that comes with experience too. I tend to like to go with a little bit on the light side over the heavier side, because it's my feeling in bass fishing, I've got to get the bass to bite before I can get the fish in. I hear a lot of these guys that flip with 65 pound test braid. I've never seen the need to do that. A lot of times if I'm flipping mats, I'll flip a 40 or 50 pound test braid. I simply don't think you need that extra diameter. I've never broken 50. Why do I need to go to 65 when I've never broken 50? I feel it gets me more bites. But a lot of that is something that you have to determine based upon the water visibility, how thick and gnarly the cover is, and how big the fish are. So that's something that you sort of have to practice. But anyway, guys, that's sort of a broad overview of how I choose my line size. There's a lot more to it as far as the subtleties of it. When you get into specific bait categories and, different, situations as far as less wind, sky conditions, all that. But that'll give you guys a good starting point. So anyway, I hope it gets you more bites and helps you put some more fish in the boat. We'll talk to you guys later. See ya.